Millions of men are trapped in abusive relationships and don't even know it. No bruises, no broken bones, just invisible scars on the soul. This is the hidden world of female psychological violence, the hidden side of abuse. Right now, as you read these words, millions of men across the world are trapped in psychologically abusive relationships. And the most shocking part is, most of them don't even realize it. They think they're being good husbands, supportive partners, responsible men. They believe they are doing the right thing by sacrificing their needs for the sake of love, family, and peace at home. But behind that illusion, something far darker is happening. These men are not living in relationships. They are living in prisons without bars, slowly being drained of their dignity, confidence, and even their very identity. Society has taught us a simple narrative. Men are the abusers and women are the victims. Always, no exceptions. We've been told this story so many times that we accept it as absolute truth. But what if reality isn't so simple? What if women commit just as much relationship violence as men? But instead of using fists, they use the mind. Instead of leaving visible bruises, they leave invisible scars on the soul. And here's the devastating part. The system only recognizes one form of abuse, the physical. A man who raises his hand can go to jail, but a woman who spends decades destroying a man's mind, self-worth, and sanity, society not only ignores it, but sometimes even applauds her for being strong. I've seen real cases, men who were once confident, powerful, and respected, reduced to shells of themselves. Men who built companies, raised families, earned fortunes, and yet couldn't even eat dinner in their own kitchen without fear. And what makes this abuse so dangerous is how it begins. It doesn't start with cruelty. It starts with sweetness. The woman appears caring, loving, supportive. She showers him with attention, affection, and promises of a happy life together. That's the trap. By the time the mask falls, the man is already too invested, financially, emotionally, socially, to escape. Let me give you a chilling example. A 60-year-old executive I consulted with had built a successful company from the ground up. He provided everything for his wife and children. He believed he had done everything right. Yet today, he lives like a ghost in his own home. His wife hasn't spoken a single word to him in 3 years. Not one. They live under the same roof, even sleep in the same bed. But to her, he doesn't exist. He only leaves his room when she goes to work, just to avoid the crushing silence and contempt that greet him if she's around. He buys his food separately. He eats alone. Imagine that. A man who built an empire, who provided a life of comfort, now living like an unwelcome guest in his own house. How did it get this bad? It didn't happen overnight. At first, she didn't like his friends. They're a bad influence. They don't respect me. It's them or me. And because he loved her, he chose her. Then came his hobbies. Fishing? That's childish. Golf? That's a waste of money. Slowly, he gave up the things that gave him joy. Next, it was his family. Your brother is toxic. Your mother never liked me. We need boundaries, piece by piece. She cut away everyone else in his life until there was nobody left but her. And once she had him completely isolated, she stopped pretending to care. The most sickening detail. Right before retirement, she convinced him to refinance the house and put everything in her name. That's what a loving husband does, she told him. Now, at 60 years old, he's trapped paying for a house he no longer owns, living a life he can't escape. If he leaves, he's homeless. If he stays, he's dying inside. This is not a weak man. This is not a failure. This is a strong, intelligent, accomplished man who got caught in a type of abuse society refuses to even acknowledge, and he is not alone. There are millions like him, men who never thought this could happen to them, men who stayed quiet because they thought no one would believe them, men who are wasting away in silence while the world tells them to man up and be stronger. But strength isn't the problem. The problem is that psychological abuse doesn't look like abuse. It doesn't leave bruises. It leaves scars on the soul, and those scars are every bit as real and often far more permanent. The slow death of a man. If part one showed you the shocking reality of how psychological abuse begins, then part two reveals what happens when it goes unchecked. Because the truth is, this kind of abuse doesn't just damage a man's relationships, it slowly kills everything that makes him who he is. Think about it. A man doesn't lose himself all at once. He loses himself piece by piece. First, it's his voice. He learns that whenever he speaks his mind, it leads to conflict, arguments, or silent punishment. So he speaks less. Then, it's his choices. What he eats, where he goes, who he sees. Suddenly, every decision has to pass through her approval. Next, it's his confidence. He begins to question himself. He wonders, maybe she's right. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I am not good enough. And once that seed of doubt is planted, it grows like a weed until it strangles every part of his life. I've sat across from men who used to command boardrooms, men who made million-dollar deals without blinking, men who had respect wherever they went. And yet, in their own homes, they live like shadows. Their shoulders hunched, their voices lowered, their eyes filled with fear of making the smallest mistake. That is the power of psychological abuse. It doesn't just attack your circumstances, it attacks your identity. One man I counseled had been married for 25 years. In the early days, he thought he'd found the love of his life. She was charming, attentive, affectionate. But slowly, she began chipping away at him. At first, it was little comments. "Why do you always do it like that? Can't you ever do anything right?" said playfully, but often enough that he started believing it. Later, it became comparisons. "Look at so-and-so's husband. He bought her a new car. What do I get?" Eventually, it turned into full-blown contempt, rolling her eyes when he spoke, interrupting him in front of friends, mocking his achievements. Over time, his entire world shrank. He stopped seeing friends because she always found a reason to dislike them. He distanced himself from family because she made him feel guilty for spending time with anyone but her. He stopped pursuing hobbies because that's childish or that's a waste of time. By the time I met him, he was like an empty shell. He still worked, still paid bills, still fulfilled his duties. But inside, he was dead. And here's the tragedy. No one around him saw it. To the outside world, he looked like a normal, successful man with a wife, kids, and a stable home. But inside those walls, he was suffocating. He told me something that broke my heart. "I don't even know what I like anymore. I don't know who I am without her voice in my head telling me what I can or can't do." That's what psychological abuse does. It doesn't just hurt you, it erases you. It takes away the laughter, the joy, the spark that once made you feel alive. It leaves you existing, not living, breathing, but not free. And society doesn't help. If a man dares to speak about this, he is ridiculed. What kind of man lets a woman control him, they ask. Or worse, you should be grateful. At least she isn't hitting you. They fail to understand that sometimes words cut deeper than fists. Sometimes silence is more violent than shouting. Sometimes the absence of love is more destructive than the presence of hate. The saddest part, many men reach a point where they start believing they deserve it. They convince themselves that this is just how relationships are, that their suffering is normal, that real men endure in silence. And so, they stay. They stay until years turn into decades, until their backs are bent, not from age, but from the weight of carrying a love that never really existed. This is why I call it a slow death. Not a death of the body, but a death of the spirit. The man who once had fire in his eyes becomes a ghost walking through life, unnoticed, unvalued, unloved. And all the while society looks away, blind to the pain of millions of men silently drowning in their own homes. The illusion of love. One of the cruelest aspects of psychological abuse is that it often hides behind the mask of love. The very word that is supposed to bring warmth, safety, and joy is twisted into a weapon. And the man trapped inside this illusion doesn't realize it, at least not at first. Because in the beginning, it feels real, it feels magical. This is how the cycle begins. She showers him with affection, attention, and intimacy. She tells him he's the best man she's ever met, that no one understands her the way he does, that she feels safe in his arms. For a man, these words are powerful. They make him believe he's found his soulmate, his partner for life. He invests everything, his time, his money, his energy, because he believes he's building something meaningful. But slowly, the mask begins to slip. The affection becomes conditional. The intimacy becomes transactional. The love he thought was pure now feels like a reward she gives only when he obeys. And when he doesn't, silence, criticism, withholding. Suddenly, what was once given freely now has to be earned, and the rules for earning it keep changing. Let's be clear, this is not love. This is control disguised as care. This is power hidden inside promises. This is manipulation at its finest. And yet, most men don't recognize it until it's too late. I once spoke with a man in his 40s who told me, "In the beginning, she made me feel like a king, but now I feel like her servant." What changed? Not him. He was the same man, working hard, providing, loving her. What changed was her strategy. Once she knew he was fully committed, she no longer needed to pretend. She could now demand instead of ask, command instead of request, punish instead of appreciate. It's like a fisherman casting a line. At first, she dangles the bait, sweet words, affection, attention. The man bites, believing he's found nourishment. But once the hook is set, the bait disappears, and all that remains is the pull of the line, dragging him wherever she chooses. And society plays its part in this illusion. From movies to songs to social media, men are bombarded with the same message. True love means sacrifice. A real man puts his woman first. If she's unhappy, it's your fault. This conditioning makes men easy targets. They accept mistreatment because they think it's their duty. They tolerate disrespect because they believe patience is proof of love. They endure psychological abuse while telling themselves this is just what relationships are like. But here's the brutal truth. Real love does not drain you. Real love does not strip you of your identity. Real love does not make you feel worthless, invisible, or afraid. If what you're experiencing leaves you weaker, emptier, and more broken with each passing year, then it is not love. It is abuse wearing a mask. And this mask is powerful because it creates doubt. Whenever the man begins to suspect something is wrong, she reminds him of the good times. She brings up the moments when she was sweet, when she cared, when she made him feel alive. He clings to those memories, hoping they will return. He tells himself, maybe if I try harder, she'll love me the way she used to. And so, he stays. He gives more. He sacrifices more. He loses more. This hope is the chain that keeps him tied. It's not just fear of leaving. It's the illusion that love still exists, that the woman he fell in love with is still there, hiding beneath the cruelty. But in most cases, that woman was only ever an act, a mask designed to capture him, not a reality to sustain him. And so the man finds himself in a paradox. He is starved of love, yet addicted to the memory of it. He is unloved in the present, yet chained by the illusion of the past. He lives in a prison built not of walls, but of hope. This is the tragedy of the illusion of love. It blinds men to the reality of abuse, convincing them that suffering is noble, that pain is proof of devotion, and that endurance is the path to happiness. But endurance only leads deeper into the trap, until one day he wakes up and realizes he has given everything and received nothing. Breaking the silence. We've seen how psychological abuse begins, how it drains a man's spirit, and how it hides behind the illusion of love. But now comes the most important part. How do you break free? How do you escape a prison that has no walls, no chains, and no locks? Only invisible ropes of fear, guilt, and hope. The first step is awareness. You cannot fight an enemy you cannot see. Many men don't even realize they are being abused because society never gave them the language to describe it. They think abuse only means bruises, yelling, or violence. But abuse can be silence. Abuse can be control. Abuse can be the constant erosion of your worth. The moment a man recognizes this truth, the spell begins to break. Awareness is the crack in the mask, the first ray of light that enters the darkness. The second step is reclaiming your identity. Psychological abuse thrives on erasing who you are, your voice, your passions, your dreams. To fight back, you must rebuild them. Ask yourself, what did I love before her? What made me feel alive? Who was I when I was free? Start small. Pick up an old hobby. Call a friend you've been avoiding. Write down your thoughts, your feelings, your truth. These small acts are not meaningless. They are acts of rebellion. Each one is a reminder that you are still a person, still a man, still alive. But let's be honest. Breaking free is not easy. For many men, the cost feels unbearable. They fear losing their children, their homes, their financial stability. They fear being ridiculed or disbelieved. They fear starting over after years, even decades of giving everything. And these fears are real. That's why psychological abuse is so effective. It convinces the victim that escape is impossible, that silence is safer. Yet here is the truth. Silence is not safety. Silence is slow death. Staying may feel easier in the short term, but it guarantees suffering in the long term. Leaving may be painful, but it is the only path to freedom, dignity, and life. And men must also understand, asking for help is not weakness, it is strength. For too long, men have been conditioned to man up, to carry their burdens alone, to never show pain. But isolation is exactly what abusers want. They want you alone, cut off, voiceless. Speaking out, whether to a trusted friend, a therapist, or even publicly, is a direct act of defiance. It is saying, I will not be invisible anymore. To the men reading this who see themselves in these words, know that you are not alone. Your suffering is real. Your pain is valid. And your life has value. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not the problem. You are a human being who deserves love, respect, and peace. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. And to society, I say this: stop ignoring male victims. Stop laughing at their pain. Stop pretending that only women can be abused. Abuse has no gender. Suffering does not discriminate. Every time we silence men, every time we mock their struggles, we become complicit in their destruction. It is time to face the uncomfortable truth. Men, too, are victims, and they deserve to be heard. The silence must end. The masks must fall. The truth must be spoken, because only when we recognize the hidden suffering of men can real healing begin, not just for individuals, but for our entire society. Remember this: a man's worth is not in how much he endures, but in how much he refuses to let abuse define him. Strength is not staying silent, it is speaking out. Courage is not suffering quietly, it is walking away when love becomes poison. And freedom is not given, it is taken back, one brave step at a time.